Hi folks, Six Lives here. Now, I have been a big fan of Benchmade's Axis lock since I got this knife here. I've had this one quite a long time. I think the design is over 20 years old. I haven't had this one that long because originally it was 154 steel and it's now S30V. Mine is S30V, but it's been S30V for quite a long time. As you will see from this knife, I've not been shy of using it. This was my everyday worky knife for a long time. Till somebody pointed out we're not allowed lock knives and the 3-inch rule and all of that came in. Until then, I carried this without any real thought. But hey, I got cautioned by a policeman, not cautioned, that sounds a bit severe. A policeman friend of mine, rather sort of jokingly, said to me, "Did my Leatherman wave have a locking blade?" And I said, "Yes, it does." And he said, "You're not allowed those anymore." And I didn't, but I found that out. That was probably maybe 10 years ago. Certainly getting on that way. Anyway, I like the Axis lock partly because it's completely ambidextrous, and I'm not ambidextrous. I'm right-handed, but I have to use my left hand more and more because my right hand is quite badly paralysed. But I actually quite like to sort of manipulate the knife, hold it and so forth in my left hand, and I quite often put it in my right hand to actually make cuts. So the Axis lock is great for that. Now, for a long time, the only place you could get an Axis lock was from Benchmade or Ganzo, but Ganzo just flagrantly ran in opposition to the law. That's fine. That was their thing. Now, of course, everybody has their version of the crossbar lock, as it's called. As Benchmade will have the trademark Axis lock forever, as long as I keep using it. Anyway, why am I showing you this knife? I've had this one for a long time. I really like the crossbar lock, but of late, Benchmade brought out a new sort of family of knives, and they're based around this here. Now, this isn't the base version by any means. I think this is the most expensive version they do. But this is the Bugout, and the Bugout was designed to be a 1.8 ounce full size, but 1.8 ounce weight of a knife that would be easy to carry all the time, everywhere. Got a little bit of criticism because the plastic handles were a bit flexible. When this one came out with this fluted aluminium and an M390 blade, I thought that's the perfect one for me. However, I've not really carried it very much. I keep it because it's a sort of the reference example for Axis type locks at the moment, and it's good for a size comparison with other knives, so we can see what you've got. The 940 is also good for that, but since we've had the Bugout and its various brothers and sisters, it's worth holding that. Now, I got another one. I got this one. Now, this is the Bailout, which is a black box knife. In other words, it's seen as a tactical knife. I wouldn't necessarily want to trust my life to it as a tactical option, but then I wouldn't want to trust my life to any knife as a tactical option. I wouldn't even want to use one of my swords these days. I'd end up in all sorts of trouble. But anyway, this has come in a number of variations. The first one had plastic scales as per the Bugout, and a 3V blade, which is good on toughness, not so much on wear. Then they brought this version out. Now this has got aluminium scales. There's a theme here, by the way. I like the aluminium scales. And of course it's got the axis lock. But this one has, now I can't do it anymore since my fall last year, but it's the only thumb stud knife I've ever been able to actually flick out. No, I can't do it anymore. I thought when I first got it, I was able to flick this one out, but since my fall, as I say, I've just I've slowed up even more. But anyway, the thing with this one is, just scrape my knives together. This one has the CPM M4 blade steel. Now you'll probably see I've used this one quite a lot. M4 has one major disadvantage in that it's not very corrosive resistant, so coating it makes sense, although looking at the edge here there doesn't seem to be much in the way of corrosion getting in there. Partly it's probably because it's quite highly polished and I do use it quite a lot, so it gets stropped quite a lot. But as I say, this is supposed to be effectively the tactical member of the family, and there's others. There's a hunting version now, and there's a rescue version, and so on. But what I would say is, from a sort of tactical point of view, I'm not sure that it's got much advantage over the standard Bugout. The blade is very marginally longer, and of course it has the tanto, so-called tanto point, as opposed to the drop point of the Bugout. Where it does score, it is potentially more helpful in a tactical version, is that the handle is just a little bit bigger, but it's not much bigger, and it's only made bigger by the move these along a bit, by the lanyard ring and glass breaker at the bottom there. So I think it's a great knife, the utility knife, as an everyday carry knife, that type of thing. With the M4 blade, it's very thin, which is a thing with all the Bugout family, but the M4 blade is particularly thin, and so it makes a really good slicer. M4 is very easy to sharpen to a very, very sharp edge, and then it does tend to hold that edge for quite a long time. This is a knife, when I sharpened it, I went to sort of trim some hair off my arm just to see if it was sharp, and I cut myself 3 times just in one stroke along my arm because it was so sharp and I didn't even feel it. Anyway, I'm rambling here. I'm many minutes into this video and I haven't restarted to tell you what I want to tell you. Now, one thing I meant to say at the beginning, the original axis lock was on a knife called the 710, and a little bit of a spoiler alert, we will be seeing a 710 in the next few days. Anyway, why am I showing you this? All this stuff, you've seen it all before. None of this is new. Well, this is new. Now this isn't mine, this is one of my high-end knife collection loaners, but this is probably the pattern that I would have liked most of the Bailout. Now, the owner of this knife is a good friend of mine, and he had come along and he'd seen the Bailout, my Bailout, and he quite liked it. So what he bought immediately was the full immunity, and unfortunately I don't have that here for comparison, which is a shame. But anyway, he brought that along and showed it to me, and it's a really nice little knife. It's really a scaled down version of the Bailout. It's got a sort of 2-inch blade rather than the 3 and a bit. I think it's 3.4. I think it's the length of this one. Maybe 3.5, but it's thereabouts. The full immunity only has a 2-inch blade and a much smaller handle. Also, there are one or two other things about it. It's a different finish. It doesn't have the glass breaker at the end. And he absolutely loves the full immunity. But because he tried my Bailout and thought it was worth a look, he bought one, and there was a new and a couple of colour options that had come out, and I have to say this was probably my favourite of them. I'm not a great fan of coated blades, but if you're going to have a coated blade, I quite like both of these actually. I'm not so keen on the black black DLC or whatever. One, it shows marks very easily, and two, I just don't see the point of pretending to be sort of stealthy and commando-like. So I don't need that sort of coloration. But I like this one because I like the blue colour. I quite like this tan. I probably prefer the blue with the grey blade. That would be my first choice. But hey, Benchmade make the decisions. Technically, there's not much to choose between these two knives. They're both aluminium. They're both M4. They're both coated. I've converted mine to left-handed, but if I turned this over, one would be a mirror image of the other. What is different, and it's subtle but significant, is the shape of the lanyard loop stroke glass breaker. Now, this has always been a bit of a bone of contention. I know that Pete from Cedric Canada Outdoors, he loved the Bailout, and he got rid of that back spacer and replaced it with one that's just flush with the end of the knife, with a sort of gear pattern up the back. And I have often thought about trying to get one of those, but you have to get them from America, and what starts off cheap becomes very expensive by the time you've bought enough to pay the postage and so forth. But anyway, they've changed it. On the original one, it was shaped a little bit more like this, but with a glass breaker on the end. Then they changed it so that you have a smaller lanyard hull and then a bit of beefing up behind the glass breaker. Now, I suppose that's because it's a sort of tactical knife. There is always seems to be the requirement for a glass breaker. Or an impact device. I'm not sure about it. Particularly on such a lightweight knife, you're not going to get much impact behind it. So anyway, this version, which is, I suppose, a more clearly civilian version, they've done away with the glass breaker. And I thought, when I saw that, that's fantastic. But they've also changed the shape of the lanyard loop. So we've gone back to having a big long slot, but whereas this one, it's difficult to see because I've got a blooming lanyard on there, but this one, the edges are quite rounded and the bottom sort of face is quite short. This one, the face here is longer, and as a result, the angle of the sides of it are a bit steeper, and these corners are noticeably sharper. So the chap who owns this says that he feels that these bits dig into his hand and make it uncomfortable. He would prefer this shape, even with the glass breaker, although he doesn't want the glass breaker either. And as a result, his favourite of them all is the full immunity, which is, you know, the baby version. But he says it gives far more use. He enjoys using it. It's a good knife to carry around. Of course, in the UK, it's still illegal to carry outside of the home. But hey, that's the sort of thing we just have to live with over here. I know a lot of people in the comments, there's always people saying, you need to just stand up for your rights. But the problem is that in this country, most people, the vast majority, would rather that we had less access to knives, less access to guns, less access to all sorts of things like that. I partly agree with them. I mean, I take the view that if I lived in America, I would want to own a gun for my own protection. That's because everybody and his dog seems to own 3 guns in America. So you're definitely at risk, and you need to be prepared for that risk. But I'm very glad to say I live in a country where I don't need to carry a gun. There's absolutely no necessity for it. My chances of being shot are comparable to being hit by an asteroid. It's just not something that happens. There are 10 or 20 deaths by firearm in this country every year, but almost all of them will be a farmer ending himself with a shotgun. And that's the truth of the situation. I know that a lot of American people always find it bizarre that our police don't carry guns routinely, although sadly it's becoming more common. Certainly anti-terrorist police and airport police and things like that are now, or many of them are now routinely armed. But most policemen, most of the time, don't carry a weapon at all. They usually will have a truncheon or a side-handled baton, and that is their entire defensive system. And to be honest, I'm glad I live in a country that's as safe as that I don't have to worry every day about is somebody got a gun, is somebody going to rob me or whatever. That's the price we pay. What I am annoyed about is the fact that if I want to carry even a tiny little knife, if it's got a lock, it's illegal. I cannot carry it. The Spyderco Ladybug here, it's a sub 2-inch blade. It's a tiny little knife. I suppose you could injure somebody with it if you really worked at it, but it's it's too small to really be considered an offensive weapon, but it's classified as such in the UK. That's the sort of thing I find tiresome, that I cannot carry a Bowie knife in public, or even a largish sort of folder like as it's here on the desk, the 710 here, which is a big chunk of a knife, let me tell you. Just put it down beside these if I can. It's a much, much bigger knife. That I can't carry that, I can accept, I can live with, but that I can't carry a little baby Spyderco, That's the sort of thing that winds me up. But you will never get a politician in the UK to back knife rights. It would just be an out-and-out vote loser. So it's not going to happen. Anyway, after that ramble, we will be seeing the 710. We'll be talking about that. There's a lot more to say about that, though. It's quite a separate thing. What I wanted to show you today was just the changes that they made to the Bugout. Some of it is just colorways, but the main thing is the changes to the lanyard ring, which are a little bit concerning. What would have been better would have been if they'd just effectively done away with it altogether, and if they could have left a recessed lanyard sort of pin in the back, that would have been great. If not, I like a little lanyard on these knives because it makes them easy to get out of my pocket. But the thing you can always do with a Benchmade or any other knife is you can add a little tag like that, and there is no lanyard hole in the Osborne 940, but you just clip it around the clip, and you've got a lanyard if you want one. Most people probably won't worry too much. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this. Thank you very much for bearing with me in my rambling, and sorry I've been so my videos have been so few and far between of late. I've just had one or two life issues that just keep getting in the way. Anyway, if you like this stuff, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see some more, please subscribe, and we'll see you again soon. I've got several things to show you, including a very, very, very nice slip joint, which will be coming up very, very soon. So anyway, thank you all. Bye bye. See you next time.